Hey everyone, welcome to Tales and Text, and I'm your host Nisha, and welcome to another episode on this channel. And in today's video we're going to be doing a book review. And yes, if you have been following my Mahabharata readathon, you'll be happy to know that I completed volume 2. Look at this. So many flags. Alright, I'm gonna keep this video short. I hope so. Because last month I just did a detailed catch-in or catch up with all of you about checking in about what I'm reading currently, and I did mention in the previous video of the Mahabharata series that I was close to finishing. So I'm gonna be just giving you some basic outline about this book, what it made me feel, and what themes you could encounter, how reading this book was. All right, so this book starts off with with Arjuna having been exiled to go into the forest, purely because he interrupts Yudhishthira when he is with Draupadi in their bedchamber. And it ends at once again when Arjuna has gone to kind of conduct the austerities in order to get the weapons from the various gods, and he goes to Indraloka. He visits his father in heaven, and the rest of the Pandavas and Draupadi are left in the forest, and they're just waiting for him to return with all of the weapons, and after he's successful. So that's where it ends. So this book, some of the major themes of this book are Arjuna saving Maya from the forest fire, from Agni's wrath, the story of why Agni wanted to burn Khandava forest in the first place, and Maya building Indraprastha city and also the beautiful magical palace of the Pandavas in return as thanks for Arjuna sparing his life or for saving him. And so then we look at how everyone starts to kind of think, okay, you know what, it's time for Yudhishthira to conduct the Rajasuya Yagna, and the military exploits that all of the different Pandavas engage in as they go to different parts of India in order to gain the suzerainty of over different kingdoms, in order to get allegiance from other kings and other tribes as well. And so there's a lot of description about various places which kind of came under the banner of Bharata during that time. And after that we have the actual Rajasuya Yagna, where a lot of stuff goes down, as some of you may know, where Yudhishthira has to choose someone to kind of honor as the elder of the ceremony, and everyone chooses Krishna, or rather they tell Bhishma to choose, and Bhishma chooses Krishna, and Shishupala is just not cool with that, and he insults everyone under the sun, and Krishna ultimately ends up killing him. Right, so this account of Shishupala's death is just kind of done matter of fact. The Sudarshana Chakra is there one moment, and then it's not there, and then Shishupala is dead. So it's a very matter of fact kind of a story that takes place. Oh yeah, of course, before this we have Jarasandha Vadha. I'm so sorry, it kind of slipped my mind. And it was one of the sections of the book which, if you have watched my previous catch-up video, you will remember, where I spoke of how Jarasandha Vadha was one of those morally grey areas for me. Because everyone believes that the Pandavas and Krishna are just, that they are on the right side, especially because everyone thinks Krishna is a god, so everything he does must be right. But there are a lot of times in the Mahabharata, even in just the first 2 volumes, where you see that Krishna is unduly partial to the Pandavas. Krishna is willing to bend and break the rules of dharma. Krishna is willing to do things which are not really morally correct just because it suits him, right? And so Jarasandha Vadha, it sort of broke those rules of Kshatriya behavior. If you're familiar with the Mahabharata, you will know that there are certain rules of Kshatriya behavior that you should not break if you want to be considered as an honorable Kshatriya, and if you want your any exploits or expeditions, successes, victories, kills, all of them to be considered with respect, you're not supposed to break certain rules. But a lot of those rules are broken because Krishna says, you know, otherwise you can't defeat Jarasandha because he is actually that powerful. So let's break all these rules and just get the work done, right? So it's sort of like the end justifies the means. So that was a very morally gray area. So that was a very interesting perspective, right? And then after that, of course, is when the military exploits take place and Rajasuya Yagna takes place, and then we finally come to the Dyuta Parva. The Dyuta Parva is the game of dice. And this Parva and the Anudyuta Parva, which is the experience after the game of dice, these two were my favorites. First off, right off the bat, I know it's going to be very disappointing to many of you. The whole Krishna saving Draupadi from the disrobing scene does not happen. The disrobing does happen, but there is no divine intervention. It seems like her sari just magically continues to keep growing and keep coming, no matter how hard Dushasana pulls. But there is no divine intervention per se that takes place, and so this incident is just chalked to just some maya of life and just kind of like ignored, brushed away. But yeah, the game of dice, that entire section of the first game of dice, when Yudhishthira loses all of his belongings, kingdom, brothers and wife the first time, and the second time when he's again re-challenged by Duryodhana and Shakuni, after Dhritarashtra gives everything back, right? And the second time they lose everything, and then that's when they're exiled to the forest for 13 years. So both of those instances were rich with a lot of philosophical questions, philosophical conundrums. See, because one thing that you actually see very glaringly over right here, and which even Yudhishthira actually mentions, is that first off, Yudhishthira is considered as the Dharma Raja, Dharma Putra, the son of Dharma, the person who's the most righteous, right? One thing that you notice in even volume 1 in the book, the review for the volume 1, I did mention this as well, is how Yudhishthira is more a person who knows how to twist and turn dharma to benefit him, rather than being someone who follows dharma constantly. It's because his understanding of dharma is so strong that he's able to twist the meaning of dharma to suit his needs. It happens during when the when the wax palace is burnt down initially, when Kunti and the Pandavas are hiding in the wax palace and Duryodhana commissions someone to burn down the wax palace to kill them, and then the Nishida family actually gets killed. In a lot of popular narratives, it is shown that Kunti has the idea to let the Nishidas be killed instead of them, but in the critical edition, it is Yudhishthira who has the idea to let the Nishidas be killed, and he justifies it by saying that he as a king has a higher dharma towards his kingdom, and so it's okay, and he is willing to take the burden of the blame. So he tries to justify it like that. Second time, when Arjuna interrupts him and Draupadi when they are in the bedchamber, he again tries to kind of wheedle Arjuna out of that punishment, because there's a punishment imposed by Vyasa that if anybody disturbs the other brother when they're with Draupadi, they have to be exiled for X number of years. So even there, Yudhishthira tries to use his knowledge of dharma to forgive Arjuna and to kind of get him out of that punishment. But it's another issue altogether that Arjuna is like, I'm sorry bro, that's not gonna happen, I'm not gonna do that, I'm gonna be true to whatever vow I took, and I'm gonna go into exile. So but even there, Yudhishthira bends dharma, right? And even in the game of dice, you see that Yudhishthira is very much aware that gambling is adharma, it's not righteous, it's not morally correct, and despite knowing that, he keeps going back again and again to gamble, even though he keeps losing, stating that it is the dharma of a king to never say no, and that he kind of uses that excuse to justify his addiction to gambling. And so you see over here that a lot of times we say that, oh, poor Pandavas, poor Yudhishthira, they lost their kingdom, but Yudhishthira lost his kingdom because of his own foolishness. Worse than that is when Yudhishthira blatantly ignores all rules of dharma. After he loses himself, after he loses control or ownership over himself, he then stakes Draupadi in the end. So Draupadi, she has a very valid question, but basically she says, when Yudhishthira, as a husband, he has ownership over me, but when he has lost ownership over himself, what right does he have to stake me as a claim, because then I'm a free agent. He can't stake me because I'm not his property, because he is somebody else's slave right now. And yet he has done so, and yet none of the elders, none of, no one, Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, no one questions that move by Yudhishthira. So you see Yudhishthira breaking dharma again and again and again, and so it's a very morally complicated conundrum. You start to see these characters who are painted as, like black and white. I hate that phrase, very racist, but they're painted as, either completely right or completely wrong. You see that all of them have shades of problematic behaviors, within them. You see, through Yudhishthira's gambling addiction and his changes dharma to suit his needs, like, just his blatant disregard for the actual rules of the society, and his using and misusing dharma multiple times to justify himself. So there are a lot of instances like that. And after the exile takes place and they actually move into the forest, there's a very beautiful chapters where both Draupadi and Bhima, they use dharma once again to remind Yudhishthira what his dharma as a Kshatriya should be, not as a husband, not as a brother. They're not using those individualistic dharma, here at all. They are questioning him using the dharma of the moral code of a king, of a Kshatriya, of a future emperor, right? Saying that you know that you're going to become a future emperor. You consider yourself to be the king of Indraprastha, of us. And so these are the responsibilities that you have according to dharma. Why are you not fulfilling them? Why are you not doing these? And so there's again, so Bhima and Draupadi both make really incredible arguments about his responsibilities and his duties. And once again, you see Yudhishthira trying to wheedle his way out of those responsibilities by giving an explanation. So this book was really, like I said, it's a very morally grey book. I absolutely enjoyed. I loved the second half of the book a lot. Right from the game of dice till the end of the book, it was incredible, because you are constantly seeing yourself shift allegiances, right? Yes, Duryodhana and Shakuni and the rest of the gang are painted in a very horrible light over here. But then, you also start to wonder, like, after a point, once you've dug yourself into that hole, like, you have the ability to extricate yourself out of it, but you're choosing not to. And you start to blame, or rather at least assign some part of the blame to the Pandavas as well, right? Why didn't, for example, before... like when the stake was happening, yes, Yudhishthira was the king, yes, Yudhishthira is the eldest brother, and the younger brothers owe him their allegiance. But don't they as kings themselves also owe something to their, to their public, to their population, to their wife, right? And shouldn't Yudhishthira have stopped gambling the moment he lost himself? But then why did he willingly stake his wife after that? Second, when Dhritarashtra returns the entire kingdom and everything to Yudhishthira, why does he accept a second time to come back and play again? He uses the whole concept of a king should never say no, but then this clearly reeks of an addiction to gambling, right? You start to lose that empathy that you have, or sympathy that you have for the Pandavas, because they keep making those mistakes again and again. As they say, fool me once, shame on you; fool me twice, shame on me. It's kind of that situation. So like I said, so even all the discussions that take place are just absolutely brilliant. There's a lot of food for thought. The sages then come in, because the Pandavas are not technically alone in the forest. About 1,000 different sages stay with them on a permanent basis, and many other sages keep coming and going multiple times while they stay in the forest. And so there are a lot of philosophical discussions between the sages and the Pandavas, so those are really interesting. Some of them are of course extremely outdated and patriarchal, but yes, you have to read this book keeping in mind the time in which it was written, and also challenge, and also you can trace how some of those beliefs that are mentioned in this book also affect us even today, and how they affect us. So it's a good way to kind of understand how our society in India developed. The last part of the book is actually about the story of Nala and Damayanti, which is also kind of like a mini epic, if you ask me. It's a pretty large segment, but it was extremely interesting. Once again, you see Nala and Damayanti's story sort of mirrors that of the Pandavas and Draupadi's story in some ways. But Nala, unlike Yudhishthira, stops short of staking his wife, because at least he had that much that much consciousness that he shouldn't stake his wife after he lost himself. So you see a lot of parallels between them, where Nala did some things right, but then also you see how Nala abandons Damayanti, which Yudhishthira does not. Yudhishthira does not abandon his brothers and his wife, he stays with them. So 1 point to Yudhishthira over there. And Nala and Damayanti's story is also really really nice. You see, I think Damayanti is one of the first major feminist characters, I would say. I always maintained that Devyani is the very first feminist character in the Hindu universe. I've even made a video about that. I'll link that down below. But I think Damayanti also follows Devyani's footsteps, in the sense that she comes across as she behaves and she comes across as a woman who has been thrust into this horrid situation because of no fault of hers, and then she finds that inner strength to navigate this world that is just out to get her, out to get this lonely woman who's abandoned in the forest. And then she successfully she protects herself, she protects her integrity, she goes to her father's house, does not bring a single bad remark on her character. These are important things to mention, because I know although those are outdated belief systems, you have to remember that at that time, and to some extent even today, the character of a woman who has been abandoned by her husband was always considered to be bad. Like, she must have done something wrong, that's why he's left her, right? So she navigates these really toxic social situations, cultural situations, physical danger. She navigates all of them successfully, and then ultimately does end up saving Nala, right? She saves Nala, just like how Draupadi saves Yudhishthira by asking for the entire kingdom back. Dhritarashtra gives her a boon, and so she says, I want my husbands to be reinstated, I want them to get back to their original position and power and privilege. And so she saves them. Similarly, Damayanti saves Nala. So you see in both these stories that it's the woman who is the saving grace, the woman who is saving these men, and yet it's the woman who is facing the brunt of the problems which she did not instigate at all. So again, I would say lots of thinking and discussions about the discussions internal monologue that I had with myself about the role of women in these stories, the gender dynamics, about how despite being the reason why these kings ultimately got the fame that they did, these women are sidelined characters. So lots of brilliant material for philosophical thought. I really enjoyed this. And yeah, we do cover the section where Arjuna meets the Kairata, who is basically Lord Shiva, and then he gets a lot of weapons. He gets a lot of weapons from different gods, and he goes to Indra Loka. Now again, another spoiler / sad news is that the section where Arjuna meets Urvashi and then he's cursed to be a eunuch, right? So that's a very, very famous tale that takes place when Arjuna goes to Indra Loka. Well, the Critical Edition does not have that. So it's completely excised, it's removed. So you don't have any curse or any such issue taking place, and Arjuna seems to be having a jolly time with his father. So yeah, so then at the end we leave the Pandavas in the forest. They're feeling super sad because Arjuna is not there anymore, and so they decide to move out of that forest, the Kamakya forest where they'll have been staying for 6 years, and they move to a different forest. And that's where volume 2 ends. So it was a super exciting book. I really enjoyed reading it, and right now I'm in volume 3. I have just started this volume 3. It's a chunky monkey. It's 600 pages long. The others were all just around 428, 430 pages. So this is a humongous book. This is gonna take a while. And the section that I'm in right now is actually about the different tirthas that the other Pandavas and Draupadi go to as they kind of wait and while away the time until Arjuna comes back. So that's the first 200 pages. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of geographical discussions, and yeah, I will get back to you with a check-in in a couple of weeks based on where I am. Yeah, I would say this, I think compared to book one was more about the Hindu mythological structure mainly, followed by a bit of the Mahabharata. But book 2 is where a lot of the action takes place. It's extremely exciting. I think you'll really enjoy volume 2. Book 3, yep, I'm starting it and I'll get back to you with it soon. Alright, if you watched this video so far with me, thank you so much for being here. And if you read volume 2, let me know what you thought of volume 2. Which volume are you at right now, or are you planning on reading the critical edition of the Mahabharata? Let me know in the comments down below. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.